If you are just joining us on Facebook, hello, I'm Lauren from RDU on Stage. And this is, so many of you know Judy Dev. She volunteers and works with so many local theaters here in Raleigh. And I just always enjoy seeing her at the theater door. So, hello, Judy. You are interviewing Mike, who is directing a play that you wrote.
Yes, yes.
So I will let you guys chat and I will see you at the end.
All righty. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you
Lauren.
so much, Lauren.
So, hi, Mike. How
Hi,
are you
Judy.
today?
I'm good. I'm good. Nice to see you again.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. And we're here today to talk about Goodly Frame Theater's unique Zoom Play Festival, which they call Zoom Fest 2020, and about working together as a director and as a playwright together in this odd sort of dramatic medium that we found to relate theater with each other. Let's start by getting to know a little bit about who you are. You are based in Greensboro, and I was reading your bio on the Goodly Frame Theater website. It says that you are a computer programmer by day and a playwright every other waking moment. I just love that. You were born and raised in Greensboro, and you've written quite a few plays yourself. How many have you written?
I think at this point, I've probably written somewhere in the 20s, and I've had about 14 or 15 of those produced at this point, between these online readings and full productions and radio productions and film productions. About 16 or 17 over the past year is about right.
Okay, well, great. I understand you're working on a full-length piece at the moment.
Yeah, actually, there's a full-length piece I'm putting together, loosely based on some of the end-of-life decisions that a lot of people are going through, and also based a little bit on the biblical parable of the prodigal son. From the flip direction, which I've always wondered about, the faithful son that gets no credit and no attention. It's kind of an exploration of some of those with a parent that's passing away and dealing with all the emotions of your renegade sibling coming home and everything else. So I've been working on that for this quarantine period, and it's been fairly productive. I'm about halfway through. So far, so good.
Wow, that's quite. I can't wait to see it.
Well, I can't wait to finish it.
I know. I think all those playwrights can't wait to see our play someday. Let me just ask you a couple questions. I'm wondering, what is it that drew you to theater so strongly that you were just so immersed in it?
When I was much younger, I have an older brother, an older sister, and a younger sister. My older brother got into theater, got into doing some stage work. He actually did more tech work behind the scenes kind of stuff. But he was able to get into a few productions, and obviously as a younger brother, looking up to my older brother, made me want to follow in his footsteps. And then my older sister started doing drama, and I wanted to compete with her and one up her. So just in high school, I started acting. I started really getting immersed into theater and just got the bug and absolutely loved it. And then wanted to become a playwright, wanted to become an author. So I originally planned on going to UNCG and then transferring over to New York University to their theater program, naively assuming that anybody could just do that, could just go to 2 years in a North Carolina college and boom, it was going to open the doors wide. I don't even know. When I didn't transfer, when I stayed at UNCG, I went from being a theater major to an English major because I wanted to write, and then to an English education major because I wanted to find a job, because it's a hard life out there if you just have an English degree. So that led me away from, that led me into teaching and away from writing and writing for the stage, which has always been my love and always been my passion. And then going into teaching got me to computer teaching, which got me to computer programming, which is where I am today. So for the past 30 years of my life, basically, I have not been a playwright. I haven't been a writer. I've been just a programmer, working, supporting my family, but always having that love of theater, that love of writing, that desire to produce things inside of me, inside of my heart. So as you know, when your kids get older, you can have a little bit more time. You can start pursuing your passion. So
That is
it's
true.
always, yeah, it's always been there, Judy. It's just I've finally gotten a chance to express some of that, which is really just tremendously rewarding.
What is your favorite type of play to write? You enjoy
Oh,
comedies or?
the funny thing is that I think I enjoy writing comedies more because it's just a lot more fun. It's lively, it's interactive. You get more immediate audience reaction.
Mhm.
When you write a comedy, they either laugh or they don't, and you immediately know whether something works. But I actually have found I think I'm better at writing dramas. Just through the course of things, it seems like it's easier to tap into real situations and drama and real characters when I do that.
Okay.
So yeah, I love writing comedies. I think I'm better at writing dramas. And actually, that's the neat thing about this kind of Zoom Fest is that we're doing both. We get kind of that chance to explore some, which is good.
Well, that takes us to Goodly Frame Theater. Tell us a little bit about Goodly Frame and how Zoom Fest got started.
Okay. Goodly Frame Theater is the love and brainchild of Meredith DePaulo Stevens, who is a tremendously talented local actor, producer, director, again, also based out of Greensboro. She has extensive experience, particularly with Shakespearean productions. And what Goodly Frame would do is they would essentially do what they call immersive theater, where they would actually go and do a play in a house or do a play in an intimate setting. And literally, you would be, as an audience, immersed with the theater along with the actors that are there. You're watching a production of Macbeth or Hamlet, and literally you're having dinner with these main characters. You're actually interacting as they're doing the play. You're right there in the play with them. So that's Goodly Frame Theater, and that's what she was doing. Was very good at it, very successful at it, and then of course COVID-19. And yeah, and all of a sudden there were all of these actors and all of these tremendously talented theater people just sitting at home, really kind of desperate for an opportunity to do what we love, which is, as I'm sure you're the same way, Judy, you're chomping the bit to get back to doing theater, but you can't, we have to do this. We have to keep everybody safe. So around that same time, I've been working with another playwright friend of mine, Clinton Festa, on the idea of this kind of Zoom Fest, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a series of plays that are written specifically for the Zoom medium, or as some people call it, the Zoom universe. So it's all things that are taking place over conference calls or over these kind of video calls. It's couples therapy. It's neighborhood watch meetings, as you know about. It's grandparents and their grandsons connecting, mothers and their daughters, fathers and their brothers. It's everybody coming together, but over this Zoom medium, and it's plays written specifically for the Zoom medium. The thought behind that was that so many of these online productions that were being done in Zoom didn't really fit that medium, right? There was a couple of wonderful productions that I saw of different Shakespearean works. The actors were great, the performances were wonderful, but it was something meant for the stage that was in these little windows. So that's where the Zoom Fest came from. Clinton and I were talking about how can we go ahead and do something for local playwrights that would let them do something specifically for this medium. When we mentioned this idea to Meredith with Goodly Frame Theater, she got excited because that matched what she wanted to do, which is do something for all of these actors and directors and producers that are sitting out there.
So a perceived need, a need that there was at the time.
Oh yeah, and also I really think hopefully an audience as well. I think there's a lot of people that love the theater, that love being able to see that live theater experience, and that's something they're kind of starved for right now. And I really hope that that's something they can recognize, that this is very much like live theater. It's performances that are captured between actors or in their own frames. And I hope that that's a need as well, not just for the playwrights and the directors and the actors and the producers and everyone else, but also for the people watching at home. I hope that's a need as well.
Well, that's one of the things that kind of caught my attention when I first saw the call for submissions. on the North Carolina Theater Conference Facebook page,
Mhm.
I noticed that it was really emphasizing that these be plays that were specifically written for the Zoom world or universe, that it was not to be plays that were translated to fit a Zoom medium, but was a world that was happening on Zoom. And for so many of us right now, that is where our interactions come from.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny. Somebody asked me if I could attend something or other or have a chat one evening, and it was the evening that we did our first read through of Where'd You Go?
Yeah.
And I said, it felt so good to say, I can't, I have rehearsal. So
Yeah, it's been a while since we've said that. Yeah.
yeah, really. But I think that's probably the thing in my mind that makes this Zoom Fest different from other Zoom festivals. And I'm not, you know, I don't know about many of the other ones that may be going on all over the world, but I do know that from the ones that I've seen, this one seems to be unique because it really was specified that it was to take place in the Zoom world, not, you know, just trying to film something as if it were an at-home movie.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me.
And I think
And
that's the real, I think that's the distinction of the Zoom Fest. And I think it's fairly unique in that way, in that we are asking playwrights to write something specific within this universe, within this window. You mentioned your play, Where'd You Go?, which is a great example of the kind of play that you really couldn't do outside of the Zoom world.
right.
Where'd You Go is a tremendous play, for those of you that are going to be watching this coming up hopefully soon. Tremendous play that Judy wrote of a group of senior citizens that ordinarily have a dog walking group that goes out and meets up in person. And now they're trying to set up a Zoom meeting to handle all of this. And that is the kind of thing and the kind of story you can't tell outside of these little windows. And I think that's what we were trying to capture. And I don't know what kind of challenges you had with that in terms of writing it, but I think I found it to be pretty interesting, a pretty unique way of approaching the whole thing.
You know, I was thinking about if we were not doing this over Zoom, you know, I've got this play, but could it work? And, you know, it's that type of thing where you probably need area lighting and, you know, I don't know, it wouldn't be the same. So I think, you know, just as, you know, you write music for musicals and poetry for, you know, poetic festivals or events. I mean, it's a specific type of thing. It's not a one size fits all. One of the reasons that I wrote the play was because, well, it was intriguing. I wanted to get involved somehow, but also I'd been thinking that I wanted somehow to document what I was seeing. And of course, we're really isolated. We can watch the news. We can't really go out and socialize with people except over Zoom. But there were so many odd things that started happening, I think because maybe the stresses that people were under, or, well, I think a lot of it was the stress. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to write a little play that was going to document what was happening at this stage, this time of this particular year.
Yeah.
I had thought initially, oh, it'd be interesting to write a journal, but I just didn't feel like doing that. And I thought, well, you know, if I write this play, then I could kind of relive some of the things. And it really, one of the things that tickled my funny bone was we were talking about it once, and you know, you were so good about reading the characters and seeing them as how I really meant for them to be. But there was one incident, I don't want to give any spoilers, but you said, this absolutely would never happen in real life. And I just kind of stared at you for a moment. I said, well, it did. You know? So weird little things that are happening. It was very, very good to.
You should give us a little bit of a spoiler here, Judy. What was that thing that never happens in real life?
Well, I actually have a very good friend who is an actress, and her name is Bonnie, and I hope she's going to be listening to this. And she wanted to make a cake for her husband, and she got some of the ingredients mixed up, and it did not turn out at all the way she had intended it. And that's probably as far as I'm going to go.
Let's not get too much away. But but what's great about that, it's true, is you're able to take that moment, that personal experience from your own life, and incorporate that. And I remember, now that you bring it up, I remember a discussion about that. And one thing I was saying is, okay, now we have to think about how we're going to frame that in these little windows, right? How are we going to actually show that so that we understand, that, because no one would, I was thinking when we talked about it, no one would do this in real life, but you can see where you can just be in the middle of something and busy with something and talking to somebody over Zoom and not paying attention. The next thing you know, you put the wrong bottle into, yeah. And that made it another challenge also. So,
and that also led to some fun prop things that you thought about. I wanted to mention, and I want to go back to that in a minute, because you said something really funny when we were first talking about the play. But while I'm still talking about the reason that I wrote the play, another reason, and this goes to what you told me in when you first picked up the play and you read it, this thought that went through your head. I wrote it specifically with characters that would be 55 years and older. And my thought was that there are a lot of older citizens who were very prolific in theater, and for one reason or another, maybe they can't get out of their house. Well, none of us can do that right now. But sometimes there are so many things that might inhibit them, including the idea that there aren't necessarily a lot of parts for older people. There are some really good parts for older people, but they're not necessarily a lot of them together. And so I thought that would be my little community service as well. And so what was it that you told me when you first read it? I thought it was kind of
originally what I said was, I think, Judy, that this is a wonderful play that you've written that is almost completely unproducible. And the reason I said that, I should clarify. So the play that Judy wrote that I'm directing, Where'd You Go, which is coming by, I think, June 24th? 24th is correct. But the play that she wrote stars 8 senior actors, 55 or older, equally split between men and women, with some fairly specific requirements that I wanted to put in. 2 of the people have to be in the same home, so quarantining together. It's helpful to have at least one character with a dog. It's helpful to have a diverse cast. It's helpful to have a mix of people. So it's not only finding 8 extraordinarily talented senior actors, it's also finding 8 extraordinarily talented senior actors that can do Zoom, that can figure out how to get the technology up and running, the webcams, the sound, and everything else that's part of that. But one of the things I was delighted about to discover as we went through this process is, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of older actors that are looking for that opportunity and that are willing to say, well, let's try this webcam and speaker thing. Let's actually try this Zoom thing, because it is easier in some cases. You're right. If maybe it's harder for them to get out of the house, harder to do a performance schedule, it's a good opportunity for them. So yeah, one of the things when I did take this on is I started reaching out to all of these actors from all across the state and pulling them in, and that's been another fun thing, which is what I'm literally doing is joining these different acting communities together. In Judy's play, I've got 8 actors. I think 4 of them are from Greensboro, 2 of them are from the Raleigh area, and I think 2 more are from the Cary, North Carolina area, something like that. But it's literally just branching out, bringing people together. So I did. You're correct, Judy. I did say it was unproducible, and I stand by that assessment. But the amazing thing is just the outpouring of enthusiasm for the project, and I absolutely was fortunate to bring in just 8 insanely talented actors for the project. So
you've got some great people in there, and it was very thrilling after our first read through. I felt like I had met the characters, that they had literally come to life. I mean, the way your casting was phenomenal. And I wanted to mention, along with what we were talking about, the older actors, I work at North Raleigh Arts and Creative Theater. I'm the office administrator. And one of the things that I do sometimes when we have shows is I help coordinate some of the ushers. And we have a lot of senior ushers, senior citizens who want to be involved in theater. They can't necessarily, their knees don't work like they used to, their eyes don't work like they used to. Memorization is different, but they really, really want to support theater and be around theater and be a part of it in some way. And I thought, well, aside from ushering, it'd be nice if there was something that was a little bit more easily accessible that would allow them to act. So there was that.
And actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually had a play that I was casting in Greensport before all of this hit. And I had an actor that was absolutely just tremendous for the role. He'd read for it in the Greensport Playwrights Forum, which I'm a member of. He read the play when it was brought in. He brought a great dynamic presence to the role. He was wonderful, but he was an actor that was in his 70s. And the stage where we were doing our performances had, it was like a series of steps he'd have to go to get like on and off of the stage and do things. And he said, I just can't. I can't physically go ahead and do, I can't be up in heights. I can't be close to proscenium. And so he couldn't do that, but, maybe the thought would be that something like this could come along and people that you're right, physically couldn't do this could jump in and do this. So yeah, that was a great thing about your play, Judy. It was. I really enjoyed the play. I'm looking forward to people seeing it.
Oh, thanks. Well, so, you've directed live stage productions, you're directing this Zoom production. How does that differ? I mean, there are so many things that would remain the same, but what would you say is your biggest challenge as a director directing a Zoom play?
Well, first of all, I think that the biggest challenge is literally the stage that you're working with. When you're dealing with a theater play, a stage play, you've got essentially the three-dimensional space that's there that you can work with. And you have, the downstage area, the upstage area. You have different platforms, different elevations, different levels you can use. And so much of it involves just kind of working according around that space. So movement and action are so important when you're doing something on stage because you've got to give that energy. You've got to literally bring this to life in 3 dimensions. With a Zoom production, it's an interesting but opposite challenge. Suddenly what you're dealing with is literally just this little window frame. And Judy, I think you've noticed I do this a little too much when I talk about it, little frames like this, but it's a good way to think about it. That's the biggest challenge, is that each person is in their own house, their own study, their own bedroom, or outside on their porch or wherever they are. But that becomes their stage, that becomes their space. And then as a director, part of the challenge of that is, okay, I've got to juggle all of these individual little squares around, present them in such a way that it's not distracting, kind of focus on, even while one person is speaking, what the other people are doing, because instead of something where I feel like I've got control over that, I can't control eyeballs. If you're in that window over there, like you're doing now, nodding your head, it's got to fit what I'm doing. Because, if you're over there, picking your nose or something like that, it's going to totally distract from what the other person's doing. So that's probably the biggest difference between the two that are there. The biggest challenge is you're literally dealing with a bunch of individual actors in individual spaces, and how they work together and how they're able to deliver their lines when they're not face-to-face, when they're over a computer screen. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And then also from a technical aspect, trying to get the lighting right, trying to get the sound right, trying to get the recording done, which if you've got somebody with a bad internet connection, obviously, good luck, because you're going to get glitches and you're going to get sound bumps and everything else. But in many ways, it is the same. You're right. In many ways, it's still acting, right? It's still, as a director, working with actors and trying to go ahead and work with them to get the best possible performance that you can. It's when you do this line, maybe we could try it this way, or this type of character, pacing, getting the actors to actually do their lines promptly back and forth, because you're used to waiting for the other person to finish talking before you jump in. That doesn't feel natural. That's not the stage. It's not the theater. So there are many ways that it's still very much the same. You're still dealing with actors. You're still dealing with emotions and personalities. And another thing, Judy, that is incredibly important as a director is casting. It's true. You've got to have actors that can basically own their little window, own their little space. And once you get that, the rest kind of rest comes pretty easy. As with everything, 90% of it is good casting. If you cast well, everything else is just basically showing up and tweaking. But
well, you certainly cast this one well.
oh, thank you.
You know, I remember when I first started writing specifically for Zoom, when I was making the list of characters, it occurred to me, and I will say that I've hear various opinions on formatting. Some people love it, some people don't. People have different preferences. I like to have a formatting template to follow because for me it makes it so much easier to really identify very quickly who's the actor, who's speaking, what are they doing, you know, where's the dialogue. But one of the things that I was compelled to add was who was in each frame. So rather than simply make a list of characters, in frame 1, this is who we have. In frame 2, I think frame 4, that's where it would become evident that those two needed to be in the same frame and therefore would need to be in the same, you know, residence. So hopefully that's a way that can make it a little bit easier. I noticed that.
And actually, I was going to say, can I follow up on that actually real quick? Okay, so because I wanted to ask you about this. So have you written for? I know you've written for the theater before, Judy. Have you written for film productions as well?
I have not.
For video?
Like screenplays?
Yeah. So did you? Yeah.
No, I mean, there are things that I have written with my students when I was teaching that they would film. I am not versed in screenwriting. I have a son who works in Los Angeles, and he studied film production at UNCSA, and so I got to see some of, you know, things that he might leave laying around, and I noted that the format was very different. It was almost the opposite looking of what a play format is.
Yeah.
But I myself don't format in that way.
Which is interesting. So when you were writing, where'd you go? When you were writing a play for the Zoom Fest, did you literally have to kind of rethink the way that you were putting the script together or how you were writing? Did you kind of see the little windows popping on the screen? And it changes at least for me, I know, it changes the kind of play that I'm writing. Writing for the stage, I have to be very conscious of, okay, this is the box that's there, and there are people, and there's lighting and effects and things I can do. So, you know, maybe I don't go ahead and have, you know, Godzilla appear on stage and squash everybody under his foot, because that'd be really expensive. Maybe I don't do that. But that's one thing. When you were writing the play, did you find that interesting, challenging, liberating to have that different format? How was it writing that from a different style?
It was interesting and it was challenging. I don't know that it was liberating. I think once I figured out how to do it, it felt liberating to have figured out how to do it. But, you know, just as when I'm writing for the stage, I imagine I'm seeing these characters on stage, and if they're, you know, crawling up from behind a rock, or, you know, Blackbeard is pulling himself out of, you know, the ocean. But here I was imagining, you know, okay, people popping in and out of boxes and you know, the frames, and that, you know, that's something else that we identified. Whereas on stage, or, you know, you have people moving downstage, or there's a spotlight, or with television and film, there are close-ups. One of the things that I realized, I wrote this play for, I think it was eight characters. I don't know that I would do that again. I've been watching some of the other Zoom plays. They've got anywhere from 3, 4 characters, smaller casts, and it makes it a lot easier to focus on them. So a challenge that I actually have given to you is that you need to figure out how to give focus to the main characters when everybody's there on the Zoom screen. I think I told you we did a test run, and it was a very cool experience because we had people all the way in California and, you know, around the area. You know, it was a neat way to bring people together. We did a test run, and there were things that I missed in the play because there was so much to look at. And so that's a challenge I know that you're finding that you have to work with.
Yeah, and it's also true as a separate thing. In your play, you have 7 different windows. You're right, 8 actors, 7 windows, and on at least, you know, on occasion during the whole thing, I'm going to need to put Brady Bunch style 7 different windows up at one time on the screen. And so one of the thoughts that I have with that is that that's going to be a challenging thing to do, is to figure out how I can put all of these actors in 7 windows and have them do things, and have them still be and have them still be a part of what's there. And you're right, I'm going to need to probably switch back and forth between different views. I'm going to need to choose to have some people, you know, momentarily switch off their windows. And so there's a technical challenge to this particular play. You're right, that is one of the reasons I signed up for it, because I knew it's gonna be challenging to do, and I like that. I like the fact that it is something that I'm gonna have to think about. I'm gonna have to do some sketches and some notes and kind of figure all of that out. But that's good. That's good. That's what a director should do, is figure out how to work through the challenges presented by the playwright. I believe in that concept. Playwright's job is to do something interesting. Director's job is to figure out how to make it happen.
I remember directing The Wizard of Oz, and I was so irritated that the script said simply, "The witch throws a ball of fire at the scarecrow." And I thought, oh, yeah, come on, help me out here.
What are you going to do with a ball of, you can't have a ball of fire on stage. That's crazy. But
what's hard to figure out.
I was going to say that, and that's part of the challenge of any production, right? Is I know before all of this happened, I was getting ready to produce a work by Greensboro playwright Bill Cisna that was set during the Vietnam War draft lottery of 1972, 73, one or the other. But one of the challenges is that they're all watching this on a TV screen. And so I'm like, oh, okay, where is this TV screen, right? I don't literally want to put a box in front of my actors. They've all got to reference this and work with this, but how can I do this in a way? So yeah, sometimes playwrights go out there and they write something and they just leave it up to the director to say, how are we going to stage this? I wrote a play that got produced by the NC 10 by 10 last year. John Paul Middlesworth is one of that actually directed. Yeah, yeah, great director, great cast. And in this play, I had one of the characters had a guitar, and I had one of the other characters reach over and smash the guitar on stage because there's money hidden inside. He smashed the guitar. And I remember when I brought that into the playwrights forum, one of the playwrights that were there said, yeah, I like this play. I think it's really great. But when I got to that scene where I smashed the guitar, I can totally see a producer saying, oh, okay, we're doing 9 performances. That's 9 smashed guitars. Yeah, we're gonna have to do something about that. So yeah, that's one of the challenges as a director is how am I gonna actually pull this off?
Yeah.
What did you do for the ball of fire?
Well, at that time, we didn't have nearly as much use of technology. This is quite some time ago, maybe 30 years ago. We used a follow spot.
Yeah,
just mirrored the iris in and changed lighting so you could really notice it. And she threw, and the follow spot kind of went and, and landed. Then I think we countered with a twin spin that had the fire gobo in it.
Yeah.
So it was rotating. So it's like you see this little ball of light go, and then it explodes into so it was really, I enjoyed doing things without the technology that we have today. I just loved it when, say, my good friend Cindy, who was a dance director, would say, okay, for this dance concert, I want a flying saucer come across the stage. I want the door to open up. I want a beam of light to come down and suck all the dancers up. And again, this was, but we did it, and it was just a lot of coordination, a lot of working together and paying attention to cues. I think it taught the students an awful lot, but it was a fun challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of challenges, I know one of the things, and I was looking at watching some of the plays that have already been shown in Zoom Fest, and for those who are watching and may be interested in watching some of these plays, right now they are showing every Wednesday at 2 o'clock on the Goodly Frame Theater Facebook page. But if you miss it, it's going to be on their YouTube channel. So you can watch it late at night when you finally have some time to enjoy it. one of the challenges that a lot of people have been writing about and helping each other to try to figure out is the challenge of doing stage combat. And I noticed that that did not daunt you. I think the first play that was the one you wrote or directed was
I want
Eliza
to direct it. It was written. It was a play called "Did You Just Take a Swing at Me?" It was written by Greensboro playwright Autumn Karen.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Fantastic to work with. I brought in two of my all-time favorite actresses for that particular role, Rebecca Stanifer and my mind is blanking. Who is my other actress? I'm in so much trouble because I love her so much that if I can't think of this, I'm going to be in trouble. Anyway, two tremendous actors that were doing this. Oh, of course, it was Bobby Liggett. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Bobby. Please, Bobby, if you're out there and you're listening, please forgive me. But I had these two tremendous actors, and I had the script, and yeah, one of the challenges, you're right, it was stage combat. It was literally the entire premise of the play was these two women that have a fight, a kung fu style fight, over Zoom windows. And so yeah, that was a real challenge. It was okay. Let's try to coordinate this so that when one person is swinging at the screen like that, the other person is flailing back like this. Yeah, exactly. Things flying back and forth. We actually worked to try to coordinate. There are scenes where they throw paper balls back and forth. And so we did this whole thing where we like tried to rehearse and say, okay, keep your hands down under the screen and just toss things up at the exact same moment someone's tossing it. But that was a really fun challenge. That was a really fun play to do. And actually, very much like Where'd You Go? The reason that I took that on was because I looked at the plays that were there, and I went to Meredith, who's the producer for this whole thing, and she said, okay, what do you want to direct? I said, well, the first play I definitely want to direct is Did You Just Take a Swing? Because I really enjoyed that challenge. I enjoyed the idea of saying, how are we going to do this stage combat back and forth? And then, as you know, the second play I said I wanted to do is Where'd You Go? Your play, because it's the same kind of challenge that's there. Different, 7 different windows, 8 different actors trying to coordinate everything that's there. But I like that. I like really kind of figuring out how I'm going to work through those things. And yeah, that first production that I did from a technical standpoint, just all kinds of things, trying to get the timing down, rehearsing that. Thankfully, that was our first week, so we literally only had 1 week to put it all together. From, they announced the casting, and then the following Sunday, we had to submit a filmed version to be produced the following Wednesday. And so I was just blessed. I had 2 actresses in Bobby and Rebecca that just put their heart and soul into it and met behind the scenes and practiced and rehearsed and figured out their costume and did all these different things. So, but yeah, stage combat, that's one of the challenges that are there, trying to coordinate things back and forth and deal with interactions between people in different windows.
Right. Well, Goodly Frame Theater, you all jumped right on the wagon very, very quickly. I felt like you announced the call for submissions in March, and
actually we announced the call for submissions in May. I think the end of April maybe, and then
okay.
I think it's the end of April, and we gave ourselves a couple of weeks to go ahead and pick out the plays and set everything up. And then literally we started doing episode 1 like a week after that. And part of the thought with that was, we'd already basically been through those 2 months of quarantine, of the whole stay-at-home thing. And so many people were so eager to do something. You've got to feel the same way. You're so desperate to get back and get that theater connection that we didn't want to wait, and take a couple of months to try to put all of this together. We're going to try to get this going as quickly as we could to kind of seize the moment and seize the energy and the enthusiasm that people had for the project. So no, it literally, it all came together in the space of about 3.5 weeks. From Meredith going ahead at the end of April, basically with Goodly Frame Theater expressing interest, to the 3 of us, Meredith and myself, meeting up over Zoom to kind of hash out how we wanted to do this and the ideas that we had, to us getting the submissions and reading everything and evaluating everything, and then Meredith making the final decision as to what 18 plays that she wanted to produce, to going and casting and assigning directors and producing things. It literally took about 3.5 weeks for it all to come together for that first episode, and it's just a work in progress since then.
Well, as let me ask you, let's talk a little bit about the really fabulous experience of, for me anyway, working with a director on this play. Um, when you are, as a director, working with a playwright, or you write plays also, so as a playwright working with the director, let me talk to you about your role as a director first. What is the first place that you go to? Where in the play do you try to tackle? I mean, do you look at the playwright's intent, the setting, the characters, the conflict? What is it that kind of pulls you into the play?
When I'm going through and I'm looking at a play, the very first thing I want to do is just read it and immediately be entertained. I want to be drawn in. I want to feel like there's something there. And you immediately know when you look at a play whether it's something that interests and excites you or not. So when you find a play that's well written, that's funny or dramatic or has really good writing or a really good situation and it sucks you in, that's the first thing you kind of look for. So as a director, the very first thing I'm doing when I'm reading a play that I've been signed or reading a play that I'm potentially going to direct is I'm just a fan. The very first few times I read it, I'm just going through and just reading it like a story for the first time and just kind of getting a sense of what the story is about and letting ideas germinate in my head, whatever. So that's the first couple or three readings. And I usually read a play about 10 times before I even call up the playwright and talk to them about it. Then I start going through and I read through the play and I start looking for specific challenges that are there. Okay, I'm like, for example, in Where'd You Go? In your play, I immediately said, oh, okay, let's look at this. We're in an age of quarantine, everyone's got to be in their own home, but I have two characters that need to be a couple living together, quarantining together. And then I have this other character that's obsessed with their dog, so I really need to have somebody that can have a dog at home. So I start looking for those challenges within the script itself, and I start coming up with ideas for how to deal with those challenges and address those challenges. Part of also my process as a director is to look at it from the perspective of being a playwright. And then start saying from a structural standpoint, what are things that maybe could be shored up a little bit, or what are lines or words that you're going through that maybe the playwright could say things in a different way, or they have an opportunity to do something that maybe they missed over here. So right around take 7 or 8 or 9 of the play, I go through and I just literally just cover the page with notes. All kinds of questions, ideas, I circle things, I draw little stars beside things, I write questions down. And then usually I'll read through it 1 or 2 more times and then call up the playwright and have a discussion with them. And one of the things that drives me crazy, Judy, and I'm sure you feel the same way as a playwright, I hate it when I write a play and I reach out and I say, I'm available. Here's my phone number, here's my email. And then the director and the producer never reach out to me. And I literally am just going to see it for the first time, not knowing what I'm going to get, almost filled with dread that I'm going to show up and they're going to have murdered my play. And I've been lucky so far. Most of the productions I've had have been really good, but there have been a couple of productions, where I showed up and I'm just like, oh, why? Why did you do that? Why didn't you call me? I could have said, no, that's not these characters. That's not what they do. That's not the tone. I know that there are some comedies that I've seen. I'm not going to name names of plays I've done. So this is other people's plays. But I've seen things where directors have taken comedies and just murdered them with pacing and a lack of comedic timing. And so that's one of the reasons why I always want to reach out to the playwright and bring them into the process, is because I know how frustrating it is to not be heard, to not have that opportunity to have some kind of input into the script. And then the flip side as well is the playwright knows their own play, and they'll know how things are done in their head. They'll have ideas that maybe I haven't thought of. So that's one of the tremendous things, is going and talking to playwrights and having them say, well, I was thinking when, it says this about the dogs that, that we could literally have like the sound of dog bark and go, oh, okay. And then we can be interactive. And then we can say, well, what if we did this? What would you think about this? And it's just a great collaborative opportunity to work with That's really what's really rewarding about the whole thing.
So that was interesting that you mentioned that particular challenge as a playwright working with a director. Let me ask you, what do you find the most challenging thing when you are a director working with a playwright?
I've got to say, virtually every single playwright that I've worked with as director, virtually every playwright that I've worked with as a director has just been awful, Judy. Awful. They're awful people. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm laughing because obviously I'm directing Judy's play, so that's why I made that joke. No, what I've actually discovered is every single writer that I have talked to, as a director, you would think that one of the challenges that are there is that playwrights never want to change their own work, right? They're very, very protective and very possessive of their work. And they think, I've written it, and it's written in gold leaf on fine parchment paper, and not a word of it can be, you would think that that would be the attitude, right? And actually what's been my experience is that, with playwrights that I've worked with, and again, I've worked with playwrights that are much more experienced and better playwrights than I could probably dream of being. But virtually every playwright I've worked with, there may be that initial reluctance because they have worked with directors that want to go in and say, oh, well, let's cut out this scene, let's change this, So initially there is sometimes that reluctance to want to talk through the script and talk through what's there and go line by line or word by word and do things. But it's actually been my experience. Every one of the players I've worked with, when I've gone and I've shown them the passion that I feel about their work, and when I've gone through and I've really shown them that I've put in the research and I've put in the effort, just like in your case, Judy, they're all immediately enthusiastic about, oh, you know what, we could do this. Or, yeah, you're right about this line. Or what would you think about this? And they're almost immediately grateful and enthusiastic to dig into their own work and, do things they feel legitimately make it better. So I would answer your question in a roundabout way, Judy, by saying the perceived challenge is that playwrights don't want to change their place. The perceived challenge is that playwrights are aloof, that they are separate from the whole thing. The reality I found is exactly the opposite. Playwrights do what they do because they love the theater and they love the finished production. And I've never met a playwright that won't do whatever it takes to make their product as good as it possibly can be for that finished production. I've said before, if you've got a bad script, a good director can paper over it and make it good. If you've got a good script, a bad director can ruin it. But if you marry the two together, if you have a playwright that is committed to doing the best script they possibly can, and a director that is committed to working with a playwright on that kind of that shared vision that's there, I've never seen that happen where the end result wasn't fantastic. And that's one of the things with the Zoom Fest is we're really encouraging directors to reach out to their playwrights and make that connection and bring them into rehearsals and get their feedback and get their input, because that can be invaluable. Although there is sometimes there are situations where playwrights will have strong opinions about, oh, I really think it should be directed this way. And sometimes there are directors that'll be like, well, I understand, but I'd really like I think this line should really be better this way. And that's one of the things, respecting the boundaries, respecting the spaces of the artists in question, is working with them and saying, okay, you wrote the play, so I can't change your words. I'm doing it on stage, so I'm the one that's going to say, what the actors will do. But to me, if you're a playwright, you're a fool to not listen to ideas of how to make your words better. And if you're a director, you're a fool if you're not listening to ideas for how to make the stage performance better.
Absolutely. As a director, what is one thing that you always hope that the playwright will do? What does a playwright do that it's just a gem in making your life easier as a director?
There's actually two different answers to that. There's pre-production and post-production, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Pre-production, the number one thing that I really want to see when I'm working with a playwright is a willingness to go through and look at their script and question some of the decisions they made and change some of the things that are there. Really be open to the idea of ways this can be improved. There have been a couple of times I've worked with playwrights where they have been very reticent to change anything. They're like, no, I wrote it this way and this is the way that it is and I don't want to change anything about this. I've worked with other playwrights that go completely the opposite way. And they're like, oh yeah, feel free to tell me if you need the entire second act to be rewritten. I'm like, yeah, we don't want to do that. So pre-production, that's my hope. So when meeting with the playwright, that they are willing to go ahead and make changes, to be open to ideas and open to suggestions of how we can work collaboratively together to make the best possible production. And then Judy, the ultimate thing that I look for and the ultimate thing that I want to see from a playwright, hear from a playwright, is after the show, I really want them to be proud of what we've done. I want them to go ahead and say, hey, I'll check out this amazing thing. I want them coming up and shaking my hand and saying, Mike, you really did a great job. You really did justice to this piece, because that's ultimately, if I do my job right as a director, no one's going to know that I did anything, right? It's all going to be about, oh, those actors were amazing, and oh, the script was so wonderful. But the one person that'll know who really pulled it all together would be the playwright. The playwright knows when the director takes their works and makes it better than it was, or as good as it possibly can be. So that's ultimately the post-production. That's what I'm really looking for, is for the playwright to come over and shake my hand, or in the age of quarantine, fist bump, and say, you did a really good job with that. That's the reward for this whole thing.
I want to mention, if anyone heard growling in the background, my dog saw a squirrel out the window, and that's what that was all about.
Oh, that's what it is all about. You're right, Judy. Yeah.
Really. Let me ask you, do you think that Zoom plays, I think we are all in agreement that live theater is what we love, and we want to do live theater. Do you think that Zoom plays will go away after the pandemic?
That's an interesting question. I think it's entirely possible. I don't think they'll go away, no. I really don't. I think that one of the things we've discovered through this medium, especially as we're writing productions meant for this medium, like what you see in the Goodly Frame Theater Zoom Fest, is you're seeing an opportunity to do a unique style of theater, a unique kind of performance of theater. It's not really film, it's not really stage, it's some intermediate place between the two. And I think that that's, an unexplored medium for art that I don't think is going to go away. I think it's going to be something people will want to do. You mentioned when you did your first read through for Where'd You Go, that you brought in actors from California, you brought in actors from all over the country, and that's another unique opportunity. You see it with some of these live productions that you see of like Saturday Night Live, or some of the other shows that are there, where they've got actors all over the United States, maybe all over the world, that are in their little windows, in their little frames, and doing things. And yeah, I don't think that takes the place of live theater. I don't think that it takes, that it's better. I certainly would rather see actors on a stage for the most part. But I do think there's going to be some unique opportunities to use this medium in tremendously interesting ways that will survive this whole pandemic. So the answer is yes. I don't think it will be as prevalent. I don't think it will be as ubiquitous as we're seeing today, but I do hope when we get through all of this that there will be future productions of Autumn Cairns, Did You Just Take a Swing at Me? Or future productions of Marriage Materials by Clinton Festa, or Where'd You Go by Judy Dove. I hope that there are opportunities that are there to see these performances in the medium that they're written for. I think that'll still be there. I hope so.
I like to think of it as, that wonderful rule in improv, yes, and that, yes, we are agreed that live theater is where our hearts are, and in the situation that we are now, we are able to do something through Zoom and then go and see where that takes us. Just run with that. I think I mentioned before that one of my hopes is that this will provide an opportunity for people who cannot leave their residencies to be able to participate in plays with one another in a more comfortable environment, maybe where they don't have to worry about being exposed to an illness. They don't have to be worried about their physical ability to climb stairs or kneel down, or even to memorize to some degree. Your actors are memorizing them, and but
Actually,
we do have.
yeah, that's an interesting topic, actually. So for the week one production that I didn't feel my actors would have enough time to memorize their lines. So yet another challenge that was there is to, get them to the point of fluency with it, but actually giving them the script on screen that, they could not make it look like they're reading, make it look natural and make it look like part of what's there. So that actually, but you're right, for older actors especially, I can totally see where that Zoom medium is a good opportunity for them, where they can't go out and do things, but maybe can have this kind of opportunity to still interact and still be an actor, be part of the theater.
I've had so many conversations with my friends where, we'll say, oh, that'd be a fun show to do, but I just can't memorize it anymore, And so, but that doesn't mean that they want to, I mean, they still love to do theater. The other thing that I'm seeing, I'm a big proponent of what you call teaching across the curriculum. I'm a former theater arts educator, and one of the things that I always love to do is to show students how, what you learn in one classroom experience can transcend that class and be applied to other areas or affected by other areas. And right now with students being able to do their spring musicals, summer camps being canceled, there are, the theater world has stepped up. They're creating musicals that can be done specifically, for Zoom. There are directors who are exploring ways to do that with their students. I know that NRAC is one of the theaters, one of many theaters that are doing that. But we've got a really good director and a production team, and they are going to do a Zoom musical this summer. But I guess where I'm going with this is sometimes some people are looking at this as a temporary fix that we won't need to use again once we can get back into the theaters. But do you see a way that there are skills that are being learned that are not necessarily only applicable to theater?
Well, absolutely, and not just skills that are being learned and in terms of the theater and what's there. I think it's an interesting point just in terms of the evolution of technology and how that impacts the art. I mean, if you think about it, the very fact that we're still talking about the theater and stage theater is pretty remarkable. And we've had television sets and movies that we could be filming all this stuff. Why would people go to Broadway and see a musical on a stage? Why would they go to a local theater and see a local production of something when you can get the movie, or you can see something on TV and have it be, in theory, a big budget and special effects and everything else. So you could almost have asked the same question, 70 years ago or so, when television first started coming out, or 100 years ago when films started coming out. What does this mean for the future of stage media? And the answer is, once you've got something that is a powerful way to express your art, then people will keep doing that kind of art, no matter how the technology changes, the times change, anything else. Just because we have celluloid doesn't mean we're not going to have stage productions. And just because we have television sets doesn't mean that there won't be film and stage productions. Just because we have video doesn't mean that it kills the radio star. It's entirely possible that we can have all of these things. And I think that the Zoom medium is a unique way of presenting this information. It's a cross between, as you were saying, live theater on the one hand with a recorded medium, a video medium on the other hand. And I think that's what's hopefully going to make it distinctive and something that will stand the test of time. And if anybody out there wants to see an example of what I'm talking about, again, it's every Wednesday at 2:00, Goodly Frame Theater page. I think what the Zoom Fest is doing is really illustrating why I hope this medium will survive. Because I do think it's making people come up with different ways to present the same information, different ways to express their art. And so, yeah, I do feel like, all of these people that are learning how to work within little frames in these windows, all of this distance kind of thing that's there, I think society is going to change as a result of all of this. And I hope one of the positive ways that it changes is it changes the way that we work, meet, communicate, and express art. And that's one of the things I hope that we're doing here.
Well, thank you, Mike. I think we're at time now, so let me just remind everybody again, Goodly Frame Theater's Facebook page every Wednesday through June 24th at 2 o'clock. You'll see a new episode which consists of 3 original plays, and the one that I wrote will be on June 24th. So if any of my friends or family are listening, June 24th at 2 o'clock, it's the first one in the lineup. Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Judy, and thank you, Mike, for doing this. And we will put those links to the Zoom Fest in the, I always say in the episode notes because I'm used to that podcast, but in the video posts when we do the video posts for this. So thank you guys for doing this so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
Stay safe and healthy.
Oh, yeah,
Me
please.
too.
That's so important. Thank you so much, Lauren. And thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
See you.